Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about deploying a Next.js application to a VPS, and we're going to add a CDN in front of it with Cloudflare as well as their tunnel feature so that you can access the app, but you have to go through Cloudflare's tunnel. That is going to have some security benefits. So we'll take a look at how we can set up a more production-like environment, I would say, because of course we do want to have a CDN, because when you deploy to a VPS, you may or may not get a CDN out of the box. So in many cases you do want to add a CDN in front of it, and we also of course want to think about security so we can protect the app as well against some attacks. So I have a brand new Next.js application running here locally. It's, as of recording, version 16, and I'm just showing off some really basic features. So a server action, if I call it, I get a response here from the server, and if I call the API route, I also get a response here. So it's just showing that this is a full stack application. We have a client side as well as a server side, and now we want to deploy it to a VPS and put Cloudflare in front and see if all of that still works. We'll try to see if we can see that the caching is actually working. Now we're going to use Coolify on the VPS. Coolify has made it much easier to deploy to a VPS in my view. If you've watched some of my older videos, I've shown you how to do it without Coolify, so you really would have to either Dockerize yourself or without, but in any case you still had to run a bunch of terminal commands on the VPS, and if you feel at home in the terminal, that may be okay, but even if you like the terminal, it's still a better experience in my view. And we will need an actual VPS, of course. I'm going to use Hostinger in this video. They are also today's sponsor, and one of the reasons why I like using them is because they already have a Coolify VPS template out of the box. So you can buy a VPS and it comes with Coolify as part of the setup, right, if you pick the template. Now, as of recording, they actually have a really great deal going on. So if you check out the link in the description, you can view it. But basically the price is even better than usual, and I will go with the KVM2 plan in this video, but if you already anticipate that you will need a more powerful setup, feel free to go with one of these more powerful plans. For example, if you're going to have more traffic, or you're going to have multiple apps, right? You can have multiple apps with Coolify on one VPS, or services, right? You can also have a database service, things like that. In that case, you may want to take a look at the more powerful plans. But in this video, I will go with this one. Now on the checkout page, make sure to use my coupon code for an even better price, and that is ByteGrad, all uppercase. If you apply that, you will see that you will get an even better price. So make sure to check out the link in the description and use the coupon code ByteGrad, all uppercase. Okay. Now you have some other options here. They also offer a daily auto backup feature these days, and you can pick the server location. Now here is where you can pick Coolify. So here, if you search for Coolify, you will see that they have the Coolify template. It's going to be Ubuntu. With this template, you don't even have to run any terminal commands. As soon as the VPS is ready, you already have Coolify ready to go. So that's what I'm going to use here. Let's actually continue to check out here. All right, and after checkout, we can set up a password here. Now we don't need to use the terminal to set things up because Coolify is already pre-installed. We can immediately go to the Coolify dashboard, but maybe later you do need it for some particular reason. So probably best to memorize the password. Let's go here and we can add some additional features if we want. And now it's gonna provision the resources for our VPS, so we just have to wait a few minutes. I'll get back to you when it's finished. All right, so after a few minutes we can actually go into our VPS dashboard here, and but we don't have to do much here because again we're going to use Coolify. We just have to click on the button here and we will go through a setup here on Coolify. And the first time you go here, you will see an account setup wizard. So make sure you are the first one here because this is going to be the root user, right? So you want to be first here, so register here. All right, there is some onboarding here, and then here we have an option for if we want to have our resources on this server that we just got from Hostinger, or we want to host them on a remote server, right? So a resource can be an app, for example, but you may also have a database service, for example, other applications, right? So we can decide, for example, to only have Coolify on this local host on this server and then the apps on some other server, right? But in this case, we're just going to go with everything on this one server, so local host, right? So we have one project in this video. All right, so now we are here in the actual dashboard. Typically, you would start here with a new resource. All right, so we're going to add a Next.js application here. That is one resource, and Coolify needs to be able to deploy it, so it needs to get access to it. So we can pick some way that we can give it access to. Now, in this case, I'm going to use a private repository. So let's actually first push the app to GitHub. So I'm going to create a new repository called Next.js VPS Coolify. I'll pick a private visibility and let's go ahead and create it. All right, so now we just have to push to this repo. So I'm in here in my app. Let me just stop the dev server. Now what I like to do sometimes as well is to just run a local build first, so that if we have an issue like with types or something like that, we can fix it here before we actually go to production. Okay, so everything looks good here. Paste this and go ahead and push that to the repo. So now if I refresh, I have my Next.js application here on GitHub. So now I need to give Coolify access to it. So actually it works with a GitHub app. Then it can also automatically redeploy if we push a new change, for example. So we will go ahead and do this. So first we need to add that app. Okay, so I will just leave the default options here. And it works with a webhook as well, so that GitHub can notify Coolify when there is a change, right? So then Coolify can redeploy. So now we need to specify which repositories it should have access to, right? Well, you can do for everything, but I like to be a little bit selective. So we will just go with this one and I will install it. Okay, so now we have this GitHub app. That's the source that we will use to create a new resource now in this project, right? So bear with me here. So we have a resource that we're gonna add and it needs to get it from somewhere. So we're gonna use that source that we just set up. It's the GitHub application. That's this one. And now we should be able to load that repository that it has access to, which is 1. Okay, so now we see some options here. We can just leave the default options. We will continue here. And now we see all the settings that you can specify here for your resource, but typically you just go ahead and deploy and see what happens. We can show the debug logs here so we can see under the hood what it's doing. If there's an issue, we get some more information. And actually the deployment failed for me because there was an issue with the version of Node.js. And I was able to fix it by going into the environment variables and adding an environment variable here called Nixpecs node version, described in the Coolify docs here. So we can set the Nixpecs node version to control the Node.js version. So we can set it as an environment variable here. So you can add environment variables by clicking here and specifying a value here. So I picked 22 because the latest Next.js, so the latest Next.js is actually needs a higher Node.js version. I believe by default on Coolify here it's like 18, and that does not seem to be supported by the latest Next.js. So by just specifying it should be 22, I got it to work. All right, so then I redeployed. So that was the second deployment here. You can see that one was a success. All right, so once you have a successful deployment, you can go to your app and we can get the domain from here. By default, it generates some slip.io domain. And here we go. Here we have our Next.js application on the VPS hosted by Hostinger. So this is the latest Next.js as of recording. Let's check it out. So if I call server action, that is working. If I call API route, that is working as well. So I now have a full stack application, both client side and server side, running on a VPS. Cool. Now, one of the coolest things is now if I make a change here, so if I go to, let's say, the home page, and here I make some changes, right? So I'm changing the H1 here. I'm adding some exclamation marks here locally, but now I want to push this to production. So what I can do is just add all the changes, add exclamation marks, and now I'm going to push to GitHub. So now you can see it's pushing here. And if I go to my Coolify overview here for deployments, you can see it's already deploying again, and it was triggered by a webhook, right? So we installed that GitHub app. GitHub will notify Coolify there has been an update. Coolify will redeploy. All right, now it was really fast, 34 seconds. Now if we refresh here, you can see my update is live in production. Okay, now you probably don't like the domain, so let's quickly see how we can add a custom domain here as well. So I have purchased a domain here on Hostinger. You can do it on Hostinger as well. And we just have to go to manage here and go to the DNS. So I'm just going to add an alias record here for my VPS. So you do need to use P that you got from Hostinger, which is this one. I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna paste that right here. I will remove this. A record for the root. I'm gonna add it as a record. So now if you use the domain, it will point to the VPS, but we could have multiple apps running on the VPS, right? So Coolify will see that incoming request and it will need to route that to the right application. So we do need to specify it here as well. So I can say something like https bytegradcourses.com. I do need to press enter here, and then I have added that as a change, but you can see it won't be used yet until I actually redeploy. So if I click on redeploy, you can see there's another deployment here. We can also view the overview here. You can see there's another one going. All right, another one also finished in 34 seconds. So now if I try going there, bytegradcourses.com, you can see I have my Next.js application here again. Everything's still working and it's using HTTPS as well. So there you go, brand new Next.js on a VPS, great deployment experience, I think. So this is already really good, but we can make it even better by adding a CDN, right? So if I refresh now, you can see all the resources that are being loaded for this page. right? So you can see a bunch of static assets like CSS and JavaScript here being cached. So whenever somebody goes here, it will have to be fetched all the way from the origin server, right? Our VPS. So ideally we can have a CDN. And also some security measures. Now about the CDN, Hostinger does offer a CDN, and if you have a website with them, that's very easy to use. But they do mention Hostinger CDN is not available for a VPS, and they actually point to Cloudflare in that case. They actually have an article here on setting up Cloudflare here in connection with Hostinger here. So we're not doing something strange. This is actually what Hostinger is pointing to in their articles. And the nice thing is that Coolify itself also describes how to set up Cloudflare tunnels actually. This will allow us to sort of seal off our server, and if you want to access it, you have to go through a tunnel managed by Cloudflare, right? So this can have some security benefits. So what we're going to do is we're going to seal off our VPS, and so if people want to go to our app, they have to go through the Cloudflare tunnel. Cloudflare on the website shows you how it works. They actually have a nice diagram here. So you can see somebody will make a request to our domain. Cloudflare has these edge servers, so we'll get a CDN, and then that request will go through our own server, our VPS in this case. And it's doing that with a little program here. It's the Cloudflare daemon, Cloudflare D, which we can fairly easily set up here in Coolify as well. So you can see this is already a service that Coolify has added here. Okay, that is in a nutshell how it works. And actually Coolify has a great diagram here as well. So basically there will be some request for your domain. It will go into the Cloudflare network, and you can see that request is going through a tunnel here into our server, right? So it's connecting with this little program here. And so at that point, Coolify can just route it to the right server. So let's actually see how we can set it up. Now it starts off by actually adding our domain to Cloudflare. So we can onboard a domain. So if you add it here, you can then set it up. I will actually just go with the free plan for now. You can see that will already give us some features here. So there is some DDoS protection. There's already a bunch of security features here. Global CDN. So this is actually already really nice to have. All right, so Cloudflare automatically scans your DNS records and shows you an overview here. Now you can see here that it found this a record here for that bytegradcourses.com pointing to the IP address of our VPS. And it has an option here for proxying. Now it's a little bit unclear for me if this is the recommended way of doing it with Coolify. Coolify here does not mention anything about domains. So I would actually prefer to just remove it for now, just to get started with it, because since it doesn't mention it, so I think it's a bit safer if we just delete it for now, just to start from a clean slate here. So I will actually also delete it here for now. So let's just continue to activation for now. So now we need to update our name servers here in Hostinger so that the primary DNS management basically can be done here. So we need to find the registrar. Okay, we'll log into our DNS provider. Well, that is Hostinger in this case. Make sure DNS security is off. Hostinger already has built-in features to protect records. Therefore, they do not support DNSSEC. My assumption here that this is already taken care of. So replace your current name servers with the Cloudflare name servers. So what we need to do is copy this, and we need to delete our other name servers and go to DNS name servers. All right, that's what we are. And click on change name server. That's up here. So we just change name servers, and we will flip this to change name server. So I will copy the first one here. We just have to delete these. So I'll just paste that, and I will also delete this one and replace that. So now if we save, it should point to Cloudflare. Okay, so it may take some time. And now you can see as well here in Hostinger that our DNS records here are gone, because it's now going to be managed here from Cloudflare. So let's continue here. So they will automatically check every now and then, but we can also click the button here. All right, now I refreshed in about 5 or 10 minutes, and actually it was already active. So technically they mentioned it could take up to 24 hours, but it may be much faster than that. Okay, so Cloudflare is already working now. Cloudflare is now already protecting our site. But if you actually go there, of course, we removed that A record that points to our VPS. Before we do anything else here, I would like to continue with the setup here for Cloudflare tunnels. So there are a bunch of reasons here for Cloudflare tunnels. There are also some reasons sometimes for not using Cloudflare tunnels. But in this case, I think it makes sense. Now we can specify it for a single resource on our Coolify server, right? So one app is typically one resource. So our Next.js app is just one resource, but we may have other resources like a database server or other apps. So you may want to configure it just for one particular resource. However, in this case, we're going to do this for all resources on the Coolify server. All right, so here we have a setup. So let's go ahead and create a Cloudflare tunnel. Now the dashboard here may change. They have a new sidebar, so the options here may look a little bit differently for you. And I believe this is already a little bit different than from the screenshot here. So I will actually use the new sidebar they have, and there should be an option for zero trust. So I'll just add a team name. I will just go with the free plan. All right, so here we are in the zero trust dashboard. Now we can go to networks and then to tunnel. So here we can set up a tunnel. So we can just click on add a tunnel, and we will use the Cloudflare daemon option here. I will just call this the Coolify tunnel and save that. All right, so then it shows some installation options here for getting that program to run on your server. So in this case, if we take a look at Coolify, they recommend to copy the install command, this one. So we just have to copy this, and we just need it for its token. So there's a token in there, and we have to remove the little bit of piece in front of it. So there's a whole, so it's not, it shouldn't be the whole command, it should just be the token. So I'm just gonna paste this right here in a .env file. So we have to remove this first part here, and we just have this token. And be careful, you don't want to show it to other people. I will delete it after recording. All right, so then let's continue here to next. All right, so here we have to add a host name. So we can do it for all of the subdomains. So I'll just add an asterisk, and then the domain is the one that we just connected. Path, we should leave it empty. The type here is actually HTTP, and Coolify mentions that this is very important, pick HTTP. And then the URL should be localhost port 80, which is also very important. The URL should be localhost port 80. Okay, so I will complete the setup here. All right, so that is one tunnel that we just created. Now Coolify also mentions setting up encryption mode on Cloudflare. Okay, so there is also SSL. So if I go out of this 01 dashboard and I click on my domain here, there will be an option here for SSL and SSL or TLS. Here we should be able to configure something as well. Yeah, so here we can say configure. Coolify recommends that we pick the full option here, which was already the case. All right, so then we have to set up that program here on the Coolify server. So we can go to resources here, and so here we need to add a new resource, right? So remember, we have a project, and in the project you have resources. This can be an application like Next.js application, can be a database. Now it's going to be that Cloudflare daemon. So we can say Cloudflare D and select this. And we need to add an environment variable here. So we can go here, and there's already one added here called the Cloudflare tunnel token. So that's the value should be what we just stored here. Right, so make sure you add it here, and I will update. And then we need to start the Coolify proxy. So we will go to servers. So we will go to servers, and we will go to this one, and here we have proxy. So we can click on start proxy here. So they mentioned the Coolify proxy is used to route traffic to apps running on the server. This eliminates the need to create new host name on the Cloudflare tunnel every time you deploy a new app. Okay, so if we take a look here, that has been successfully started. Now we need to configure our resource to use that tunnel domain. So enter the domain you want to use for your resource. So now we need to specify for our individual resource, our app. So if we go to projects, this is our Next.js app. Here we can now specify the domain we want to use. Well, we already have that, right? So that's what we already specified. So that is that bytegradcourses.com domain. Now they do mention though, here we should enter the domain as HTTP because now Cloudflare handles HTTPS and TLS termination. So if you do use HTTPS, you may actually encounter an error. I will actually change this to HTTP and press enter here. All right, so now you can see the latest configuration has not been applied yet. So I do need to redeploy this. Okay, so our app is running. Now, if you go there, if you try using our domain, it still won't work. All right, now I ran into some issues setting this up. So I walked through the guide here, but for some reason I couldn't really get it to work. Now it's possible that there is an issue on my end, but just to show you what I tried. So first of all, actually make sure that this Cloudflare daemon is actually running. So there's a green symbol here. For some reason it turned off for me. So it was a red symbol and I turned it on again. And then I actually tried setting up the tunnel a little bit differently. When you set up the tunnel, you have to create an actual route that is available for that tunnel. I split it up now. Now what we tried initially is to do a wildcard. And when you do that, you can see there's a warning here. And basically Cloudflare will try to automatically add a DNS record that will point at the tunnel. But if you add a wildcard, it will not do that. So in that case, you would have to do it manually. Now, instead of doing that, I removed the subdomain here and I just kept the Apex domain here. And I pointed it at HTTP localhost port 80. And then I also created one for www, also for HTTP localhost 80. And when you do that, Cloudflare will automatically add the DNS record. So if I go to DNS records for that domain, you can see that Cloudflare has automatically added a CNAME here, and it's pointing at the ID of the tunnel .cfargotunnel.com. My understanding is that when somebody goes to that bytegradcourses.com, they're going through it's pointing at the tunnel now. So they go through the tunnel to my VPS. And same for www. Okay, now when I tried that and then I went to my bytegradcourses.com domain, it actually works. So I now have my app running here through Cloudflare. And how can we check that, by the way? Well, if we open up network, I can see here for, let's say, this JavaScript file, that there was actually a hit here from the Cloudflare CDN. So this is now cached on a CDN. It was a hit. And so we see some other headers here in the response, right? So also Cloudflare Array, I believe this is the data center that actually sent back the response. And there is some other Cloudflare data here as well. Server Cloudflare, right? So this looks good. All of this looks good. And actually, initially, it was only working for HTTP. But later, after a few minutes, it was also working for HTTPS. So sometimes it may take a few minutes for these changes to actually propagate. But I think another issue is simply there is also some caching going on at the browser level. You may actually just try opening up a new incognito window and trying it again there. Browsers will sometimes automatically add HTTPS. So if it only works for HTTP, so in the beginning it may only work for HTTP and it may take some time for HTTPS. So in the beginning it may look like it's not working, so you have to really try HTTP. And also some browsers may add www in front. So in that case that may also be an issue. Right, but at least I got it to work like this. Now, is this the absolute best recommended way? Honestly, it's hard to tell because I am deviating a little bit here from the guide published by Coolify. So I hope that we can get some more content on this. I think this is a really exciting space, really self-hosting Next.js, trying to make it look like a real production environment. I hope there will be more content about this. But for now, our app is working, so I can use the server-side features in Next.js. So I hope this helps you out. Check out the link in the description for hosting or VPS. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.